The scenery outside reminds me of my pride, reminds me of my will. At the windowsill, I sit and see the grays, the children they all play and laugh amongst themselves. Somehow remind me of myself on the merry-go-round.
What's happening, YouTube X, everybody? I've been dying to get home and just sit in my recliner and kind of reflect on the day. Kind of put some thoughts together about some conversations I've had, some things that I've read, some things that I've heard in between work. And I figured, why not record it, right? One of two things are going to happen. Either something brilliant is going to come out of it, or something that's going to piss everybody off. Either way, good content. So here it is. All right, so yeah, I've been thinking, and this is going to be me rambling, and telling you, because I'm kind of working this out in my head, and I figured I'll just share it as I do it. So today, for the past couple of days, I've been thinking a lot about this steering committee thing that some of us have been talking about, and some of us have been talking about for quite a while. And I've had, over the last, few days, a lot of conversations with a lot of people. And I'm noticing kind of patterns. Community, like just investors, right? Not tech guys, not validators, not devs, just community people that follow and are very active, like on X, or maybe even that follow my videos or whatever. They're all for it. But there's absolutely opposition to it. And the opposition primarily comes from people who have a validator node or are in some way associated with a particular validator node. So that's a pattern. And then, even within that, it's not all validators who are against this. I've actually received quite a bit of support from a lot of people who run validator nodes. We've had chats. I've received a lot of DMs, just chats in Telegram rooms or on X or whatever. There are a lot of validators who remember what they're there to do, or at least have a healthy understanding of what they're actually there to do, which is, validate, right? Validate transactions, obviously, and serve the community. A lot of other validators don't kind of remember that, and they think that they're maybe there for something else, but I'm sure we'll get into that as I kind of get into these thoughts. So I was thinking about this while I was doing a lot of driving today. I was kind of thinking about this. Thinking about kids. I've raised 3 boys, and a lot of things happen probably with everybody's kids, right? So if you're, I hesitate to say it like this, but this is how I think of it. If you're a good parent, and I'm not saying I was the best parent, I made a lot of mistakes, but anyway, not the point. If you're a good parent, you teach your kids a lot of things, but there's also structure, there's discipline, there's lessons, there's a lot of things that go along with parenting, in preparing our kids kind of for the real world. But when you're a kid, looking at it from that perspective, because we all were there, you're in your parents' home. There are rules, right? Maybe you have a curfew. Maybe you can only play video games so many hours a day. Maybe you've got to, when you get home, maybe you got to get right to your homework. It's different in every family, right? But basically, you're constricted. You can't just do whatever you want to do, or at least you shouldn't be able to do whatever you want to do. And those rules are there to teach you lessons that you need going into the world. Well, so we raise our kids through grade school and middle school and even high school. And in high school, maybe they might even have a car at that point. And there's a lot more freedom, and you give them more freedom as time goes on. But from the kid's point of view, I'm still in my parents' roof. I have to come home at a certain time. I can't go here with the car. I can't have so many people in the car when I go. I just can't stay out all night. I can't, a lot of things you can't do. But once you graduate high school, now you're getting ready to go on to college. And that's the time now that you get away from those restrictions. You're not under mom and dad's roof anymore. And you get to go off and be on your own. You get to call your own shots, a lot of it, right? You get to stay up as late as you want to stay up. You get to maybe drink alcohol. You get to hang out with your friends, play video games, whatever it is that you want to do. You can do it when you want to do it. There's nobody watching over you to tell you, maybe you should do this way, or I want you to do it that way. You don't have that, okay? And what happens, well, depends on how you're prepared. If you had parents who prepared you for that time, in other words, they taught you fiscal responsibility. They taught you how to prioritize. They taught you good self-discipline routines, right? Then when you go off to college and you have all that freedom, you'll be able to kind of rein yourself in to a degree. Everybody plays, right? But you'll be able to rein yourself in. What happens a lot of times is that kids get out and they get all of a sudden they have freedom. And they abuse it. There's a little too much time doing the things that are fun and maybe not enough time spent on what you're actually there for, right? Learning and getting a degree and all the things that your parents are paying to happen, right? And that causes problems. Well, I've known some kids who got into those kind of things and flunked right out of college. And what do? Because they had all that freedom and they didn't know how to kind of rein themselves in. They didn't know how to get along in the free world, right? And be a good part of the scholastic society there. They ended up right back in their parents' house under the rules again. It's kind of just what happens. Somehow, and I hope it works for you too, but somehow in my head, that kind of relates to the whole TERRA Classic saga. The way I think of it is this: Terra Luna, and I wasn't invested then, but from what I understand, Terra Luna. If you think of Terra Luna as the kid, right, had parents, had Do Kwon, had TFL, if you will, who kind of steered the chain in a certain way. Now, yeah, there was freedom, right? The freedom as far as decentralization, being a proof of stake chain where, you could put up a proposal and the community would vote on it, blah, 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 right? That was all existing. But you still had some sort of guidance, some sort of leadership, like parents that little by little want to give you more and more freedom, but still keep a firm hand on guiding you in the right way, the right direction, right? But now we had the crash. Do Kwon did the fork, and they went on with Terra Luna, or Terra 2, or whatever they want to call it, Luna 2, and left Lunk, what became Lunk, Terra Classic, kind of by itself on its own, off at college, if you will. What's it going to do? Is it going to do the right thing? Is it going to stay focused on the purpose, right? The purpose was, at the beginning, for those of you who were here, you remember the Terra Rebels wanted to reestablish governance because that was going to be the key to starting to revitalize this chain. See, a lot of people had really lost an awful lot of money. They didn't know what was going on. And so these noble gents came in and decided that they were going to do all these things to try to revive the chain so that maybe those people could recoup some of what they lost. That was the mission statement of Terra Classic. It was what this chain was supposed to be. And so we established governance, and people opened up validator nodes. And at the beginning, you had validators who, basically, they're trying to get delegators. Obviously, it costs a little money to run a node, from what I understand. So if you have delegators and whatever, you kind of offset some of that cost, maybe even to the point where you might even make a little money on it. It's a little bit of a business. So that happened. And as proposals came up, very many validators at that time would actually poll their delegators. In other words, they would go either if they had a private TG or, on Twitter at the time or whatever it was, and they would ask their delegators what they thought of the particular proposal. And that would factor in heavily on how the validator node was going to vote. Some validators voted exactly the way their delegators, the majority of their delegators, wanted to after polling them. They were working for the community. They understood that was their purpose. When people delegated to them, they trusted them to. Here's the kind of the difference, right, between the way that it's looked at now and the way it was looked at then. When you delegated to a validator, you trusted that validator to vote on your behalf according to what you would want them to do. Now, if you've got multiple people delegated to a validator and they take a poll, right, and maybe everybody else who's delegated wants to go one way and you want to go another way, you just kind of have to live with that because it's kind of a majority rules kind of thing. But the thing is, you relied on the validator to represent its delegators, right? That's what they were there for. Now, somehow, and I don't know when it happened, but the narrative seems to have spun to this, right? Validators will tell you, validate with us. Not all validators. I got to keep saying not all validators, but enough of them will tell you, validate, delegate to us. We'll pay you your rewards, whatever, right? And we're going to vote on your behalf. But not necessarily voting the way the delegators want them to vote. Most of them don't even ask. They don't even know where their delegators stand or how their delegators want to vote. Because somehow they've spun the narrative to convince the community that you don't have to worry about the voting thing. We're going to do that for you. We'll make that decision. We're not going to ask you what you want. We're not going to take a poll and find out what the majority of you want or whatever. We're the big guys. We're the big dogs. We're the validators. We're in control of this chain. We steer this chain, and we'll do that voting for you. That's kind of what it's become. That was never what it was supposed to be, and it's not what it should be. If you're going to call this a community-run chain, then you have to let the community run it, and you have to be concerned with what the community wants. I was listening to that AI podcast thing that's been putting out 2 or 3 podcasts a day. It's really entertaining. I like it because they haven't torn into me yet, so so far I like it. And they talked about how absolute power can corrupt absolutely, which is a phrase that we've all heard, and it's really, really true. Another way that, all right, like I was saying earlier, I was noticing patterns, right? Another pattern that I'm noticing, it might seem random, but it's all going to make sense. Another pattern that I'm noticing is that when I told you it was mostly validators who were kind of against this, right? What I'm noticing is that it's a lot of the validators who actually have a lot of influence on the chain and a lot of voting power. They're some of the top validators if you rank them by how many delegators they have, how much voting power they have. Those are the ones who are doing most of the complaining. And again, not all of them, but the ones that are tend to be ones that have been around for a while, have quite a few delegates, right? Quite a lot of lunk that's staked with them or whatever. And I'm starting to put some things together about this absolute power corrupts absolutely. We've gone on and on. I can't say on and on, but we've made efforts in the past on this chain to kind of limit voting power for validators. And why did we do that? Well, because at a time we realized that we did not want validators to make all the decisions by having tons of voting power and then just basically, just running over what anybody else wanted to do. So we tried to limit the voting power. That didn't necessarily work out. I mean, people kind of realized that all they had to do was open up various nodes, more nodes, and you could still kind of have your voting power. So it's kind of become a problem. The reason that we did that is because, again, we didn't want that to be the case. Well, that's very much the case now. And somewhere along the line, again, they've convinced the community that it's okay. It's okay that they have all that voting power. In fact, you want them to have all that voting power. You want them to guide and steer the chain. But if you look in any of the Telegram rooms or Discords or whatever that validators frequent, you will find that very many of them, and some of these same ones who have a lot of power, they're very argumentative with everybody. They kind of know it all. They feel like everybody should just think the way they think and do what they do, and, everything that they consider for the chain is the right thing. Anybody else is, well, they don't even have nice words to say. It's really not even cordial, professional conversations that I had. It's name calling. It's degrading people. It's, I'm sorry, but it's like a bunch of kids in school tearing each other apart. And these are the people who want you to believe that give us more voting power, delegate more to us, because we're going to run the chain. We're steering things. We're in control. These people, if you read what's going on, should not be in control of anything. If you can't act professional, and if you can't work as a team, you can't collaborate, and you can't have adult disagreements without everybody turning into enemies and it turning into name calling and all the hate that is spewed. If you can't do that, you have no business in charge of anything at all. But that's kind of what's going on. So when Terra Classic became free and didn't have any control, 100% decentralization, right? This is what it's turned into. It's turned into bickering. It's turned into egos going crazy. It's turned into everybody talking about how wonderful they are and how much they've done for the chain. And meanwhile, we're watching the price go down and down and down. Now, I'm not sure by what measure they're gauging what they've done for the chain. As an investor, if you've done something for the chain positive, then you've had a positive effect on the money that's invested. You've helped the price somehow go up, or at least stay where it is. But the price keeps going down, down, down. So all these glorious things that they've all done for the chain, what have they really done for the chain? What have they done for themselves, maybe, right? More delegates, more money. That's how that works. So, we're talking about the steering committee thing, and the ones that are bitching and moaning about it and claiming that the validators of the steering committee. We don't need a steering committee because the validators got it on lock. We steer the community. Those are the ones that you will find arguing and bickering with everybody about everything, calling people names, really getting nasty and dirty, because absolute power corrupts absolutely. Come to that conclusion that really, really fits with what's going on in TERRA Classic. So anyway, a group of us have been meeting periodically to talk about the best way, if we can come up with a best way, on how to propose some sort of steering committee. And it's very, very difficult because first and foremost, we want to take into account what does the community want. And the community wants one thing. Some of the validators want another thing. The devs want another thing. Everybody has their different idea on what this thing should be or whether this thing should be at all. So reaching a consensus and coming up with something that's going to, I don't know, bridge some sort of gap is really, really proving to be difficult. It wouldn't be so difficult, I think, in a different kind of chain. In a chain that didn't have the history that we have, where, again, we were kind of set free. And when we were set free, I've made this comparison a lot of times, so if you've heard it before, I'm sorry, but here it is again. It's like some Middle Eastern country that the dictator was just abandoned the country, or maybe was taken out or whatever, and now nobody's in charge. And so you've got all these different groups and factions, or whatever you want to call them, all rushing in and trying to take control of that land. There's going to be chaos. There's going to be fights. There's going to be skirmishes. There's going to be bloodshed. And that's kind of what happened with TERRA Classic. And because of that, because these factions are so entrenched in their ideology, in their personal agendas, they will not put their egos aside and say, let's collaborate, let's work together. Maybe I don't get everything that I want. Maybe you don't get everything that you want. Maybe we compromise and come up with what is best for the community, for the chain, in order to move us forward and upward and actually make people some money, like I talked about at the beginning of this, which was the actual goal of this revitalization, right? They've gone so far past the ability to do that, that now they've flunked out of college and they need to come back home and they need to have some rules set again, because they didn't prove that they could do it on their own. It's just the way it is. So we're trying real hard on this community, on this steering committee kind of thing, because the idea is maybe if the community votes on specific people to fill specific roles, qualified people to fill, again, specific roles that are needed. And we're still working that out. What exactly is needed? You need somebody to understand really the L1 stuff, the L2 stuff. You need to understand this whole, there's a big repeg thing going on right now, right? You need people that understand all those things. The tax situation, all those technical things, you need those people, right? But you also need people who will remind all those tech guys why they're doing this, right? What are we doing? Everything that we're doing, everything that we're coming up with, how does it affect the chain? How does it affect the investors? What is going on here that is going to help the investors raise money? You need those people too. You need people basically to be the face of the chain when it comes time for dealing with CEXs or, like CMC or whoever, other projects that might want to come in. There's nobody right now to be the face. We need that. This steering committee could really fill a lot of roles, but primarily our idea, our vision for it is that it will begin to unite all the factions and remind them why they're here, encourage them to collaborate all of their brilliant ideas, and finally move this chain in one direction. Now, I don't know. Maybe these guys are so far gone that they don't care about that MO anymore. They don't care about that quest to revitalize the chain. Maybe they just, all they care about right now is building the things that they want to build and showing how innovative and how cool they are and how knowledgeable they are. Maybe that's all they care about, and they don't want anybody coming in and telling them which direction they should build in or trying to get them to work with other people. Because in my mind, that is the only reason I can see that the people who are coming against this, they don't even know what it is yet, because we don't even know what it is yet. But just the fact that we're talking about having a steering committee, oh, they are up in arms. They are coming out so hard against it. Why? Why wouldn't you want something that helped everybody to unite and helped the community? The only reason I can come up with, logically, is because they don't want to be back in their parents' house. They don't want rules. They don't want regulations. They don't want anyone trying to steer them in any direction. They want free reign. They want a free-for-all. It's a decentralized chain. Look, we're just going to build. We're going to do whatever we want to do. That's the only reason. But if that's the reason, how are you not a bad actor, right? There might be another. If there's another reason, let me know what it is. If it makes sense, okay, I want to know. I think we all want to know. But if the reason is what I'm guessing the reason is and what it seems to be, then you might think that what you're doing is good, but you're fooling yourself. You really need to do some self-reflecting, because you're not doing anything for the chain. You're doing everything for yourself. We as a community need to get rid of those types of validators. We need to finally take the power back and delegate to people who are actually working for the chain and for the community, right? Because it's on us too. We really can't complain that things aren't going anywhere, and can't complain that the price keeps going down, and can't complain that we haven't repegged yet. We still don't know what's going on with the tax. We can't complain about any of that stuff if we continue to delegate to these validators who are only out for themselves and not out for you. Oh, they'll tell you that they're out for you. But look at the track record. What have they actually done that has helped you? Ask yourself that question. That's where I am. That's what I'm thinking about. We've got another little get together, I think, on Sunday. We're going to keep working on this thing. So leave your comments in the comment section. If you have questions, whatever it is, I don't care if it's good or bad, because, you might think that you're being a smartass or whatever, and you're going to tear this thing apart. But actually, all that stuff is actually helpful, because we really are trying to come up with the best compromise that we can. So, try not to be an asshole. But if you've got something negative to say about it or something kind of against it, and it's a legitimate reason, I want to know. I want to hear it, right? We want to try to address it. So leave comments in the comment section. Like the video, subscribe, whatever it is you want to do. I don't care about that stuff personally, but it does, help maybe some other people to see this. All right, I'll leave it at that. Geesh, almost a half an hour of me sitting here babbling. Talk to you later. Ciao.